Good morning, Dan and Amy. This is just comical. We're just remarking during the break. Former Mayor SRB, former Baltimore Mayor Stephanie Rawlings Blake, she's a CNN contributor and their riot expert.
No, she is. Every time that there's any riots, she comes on and talks about, her experience and how it's similar or dissimilar to Baltimore and what people should really be doing. And because remember, she was the creator of a safe space. We need to give them spaces to protest.
No,
remember that 2-block area that she handed over?
I think it was a safe space to loot.
Oh, well, no.
Yeah, because that's actually what happened in Baltimore.
Yeah,
She
it
created a
didn't
safe
end
space
well.
for criminals. Yeah, well, sign of the times, I suppose. Another matter that transpired yesterday, amid all of the other controversies, domestic, international, is the testimony of IRS Commissioner William Koskinen, who's long past his sell-by date, or impeach-by date, in my opinion. And he was sort of apologetic, but as Kevin Williamson writes in National Review Online, Koskinen is fluent in the Mustelid dialect of Washington. Nicely done. Koskinen saying, "We did not succeed in preserving all of the information requested, and some of my testimony later proved mistaken." Williamson writes in response to that statement by Koskinen, "There's a term for that. It's called obstruction of justice." And so the question is Steve King, congressman from Iowa, and his colleagues, are they going to not just impeach Commissioner Koskinen, but refer him for criminal charges? We put that question now to our friend, Iowa Congressman Steve King. Thanks for joining us, Congressman. We appreciate it.
Well, good morning. Thanks a lot for having me on, Dan and Amy.
So what about that? Take out that Iowa loss to North Dakota State on
God.
Koskinen.
Well, let me say, with regard to Koskinen, is that, I've looked through that data. I've had an extensive timeline on what happened along the way. I talked with Commissioner Koskinen on the phone in late June for about 35 minutes. And then about a week ago, or a little more, I sat down with him in my office here in Washington for a little more than an hour. And then we had our testimony yesterday and the opportunity for the panelists, myself included, to question him. So I've looked through this continuum of this timeline, and I look at it from segment by segment. And his answer and analysis of what happened, when you try to string that all together, you can take any component out of there and say it stretches the truth real thin. But you didn't say perjury, you said obstruction of justice, and I think that's probably for a reason, because I don't think that we could get a conviction on perjury, because it's just each segment is slightly believable, but when you connect them all together, the whole thing's not believable.
Well, what is the most egregious act that he committed?
Well, I think when he knew that he didn't have the tapes that he promised us, it was several months before he let Congress know that her hard drive had crashed and that they believe the tapes were unattainable. That's the biggest one, Amy.
Yeah, but what about the underlying criminal act? This is my characterization, and I think I said Bill Koskinen, John Koskinen, of course. But the underlying criminal act, the illegal harassment and intimidation of people based on their political and religious beliefs, which necessarily involve the criminal misuse of federal resources.
Well, I do agree with that, and we aren't deep enough into that information in Congress at this point to be able to point our fingers to the exact individuals, and they have been just so slow to come with information. I asked Commissioner Koskinen yesterday, what about the people below Lois Lerner? What about the people below you? How many heads rolled? And he said most of the people that were involved in that are now gone from the IRS. I want to follow up on that and find out who they are. But these are the kind of things the FBI should be investigating, the Department of Justice should be doing. But we have the limited investigative powers. You see how hard it is to drag Koskinen before the Judiciary Committee, and each of us get 5 minutes to ask our questions, and then he gets to pack up and leave. So that's the problem. I think that the obstruction of justice that you brought out in the beginning of this, I think it's got a case, and that is not necessarily the refusal to produce information, but the intransigence and the fact that he didn't produce it. And I think that's worth looking into. And so if I had to put the vote up today with what I know today, I would vote to impeach John Koskinen. Not because I'm convinced that he technically lied to Congress, but I think he slowed the things down. And furthermore, he took this responsibility. When I asked him for the names of the people that scrubbed those 422 tapes that contained Lois Lerner's emails, he said he knew those names, but he would not testify to personnel issues. And so these two guys did a night shift in Martinsburg, West Virginia. They took it apparently upon themselves to, after 6 months of these tapes sitting there, decided to scrub those that night. 422 tapes scrubbed in 1 8-hour shift by two guys.
That's
That's
unbelievable.
improbable to me after they spent the previous 6 months preserving every record that came in that warehouse.
Yeah, I'd say.
So where do you go from here? Because yesterday's IRS impeachment hearing seemed to be hijacked by the Democrats with Skittles, our Congressman Luis Gutierrez eating Skittles, and then Trump taxes were involved in that as well.
I just don't know whether that's made up or real. Publish it if it's real, then, Luis. But there was, you could see, you didn't have to know which party people were when you heard them talk in the panel. Democrats are trying to protect Koskinen, and Republicans are trying to bring out the truth, Amy. And if I'm on the other side of that, I'm going to want to bring out the truth, too. I don't know how they expect us to have, as American people, confidence in a government when it's so partisan that you're defending a man like John Koskinen rather than trying to get at the truth.
So the process from here to perhaps call the question, you said if you had to vote today, you'd vote to impeach.
I would.
When is that vote going to happen?
Well, there's a privilege motion that's out there that's ripe now, and the sponsors of that motion can call it up at any time. I don't think they will between now and the election because of this hearing was designed to take the temperature down a little bit. I don't think our leadership wanted to see that kind of vote on the floor, and I don't know what the whip count is. If you move that motion to impeach Koskinen and it fails on the floor of the House, then advantage goes to the IRS and the people that defend them.
Well, and
I think there's a decent risk to be there.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess this if you based on what we're talking about here and the conclusion you've drawn from introspection on the issue as well as the conversations directly with the IRS commissioner, I mean, if Republicans in the majority can't see their way fit to take seriously enough the illegal targeting of people based on their religious and political beliefs to remove the IRS commissioner, then, don't you see why people have such little faith in Republican leadership at present?
Yes, I do. And I think it's going to get ever more acute as the months unfold. And I'm just imagining if we, heaven forbid, had a Hillary Clinton as president, and she begins to push this leftist agenda that she's promising America, and Congress is elected to also carry on the things that we keep our promises. We're going to have to slow down or stop a Clinton presidency juggernaut by using the power of the purse. And we've demonstrated in this Congress that as a body we haven't had the will to shut off the funding, even to Planned Parenthood, for example.
Yeah.
And when you saw the fight in October of 2013, when we did have a government shutdown, it broke the will of a lot of the Republicans that don't want to have that fight again. They think they lose, and I don't. I think you stand on principle and you don't waver.
Well, yeah. I mean, we know where you're coming from, but there's, the gelatinous orbs at the leadership level in the Republican Party.
Gelatinous orbs.
Good boy. Let me ask you another question while we got you. Representative Steve King from Iowa's 4th Congressional District.
Talk about Hawkeyes.
No, I know it's still raw.
It's too soon, Dan.
So this story that came out, we talked to Senator Ron Johnson earlier in the show, and he thinks it's a substantial issue. I suspect you will as well. But this report that's produced by Judicial Watch President Tom Fitton that suggests up to 15% of non-citizens in the U.S. are voting. This following a study that was commissioned by Old Dominion University back in 2014 that found 6.5% of non-citizens voted in the 2008 election and 2.2% voted in the 2010 midterm elections. I mean, those are small percentages, but turn out to be big, gross numbers, and I would suggest a big problem, no?
Well, it is a big problem, and it's something that when I came to this Congress, I began to push on this quarterback then before it was an issue. And that's another thing they just haven't demonstrated the will to push through on, maybe because they don't see the problem. For me, I don't want any American citizen's vote to be canceled out by a non-citizen or an illegal alien. And the roots of this go back to the weakening of our election laws, motor voter law for one thing. And so people would walk in and want a driver's license or a DOT identification, and they they're required by law to say, "Do you want to register to vote?" And so maybe they don't speak English, and they check the box that says they're a citizen, and now they're registered to vote, and maybe they don't even know they can't vote if they're not a citizen. So I think Tom Fitton's right on this, and we need to clean this up. We absolutely can't get this done with Barack Obama sitting in the White House, and we will not get it done with Hillary Clinton sitting in the White House. They have been eroding this. They'd like to see non-citizens and illegal aliens vote. And you've seen that in cities and political subdivisions, different places across the country in the liberal areas. And I think the citizenship is precious, and it's a responsibility we have, and we should clean this thing up. If there's anything that threatens our republic, the bedrock that our Constitution sets on, that it's the piece below the foundation, Constitution being the foundation. The bedrock is having legitimate, free, and fair elections of citizens determining the direction of this country. And if we lose faith or confidence that those elections are free and fair and citizens, then the trust in the republic breaks down and the Constitution itself falls. It is a big deal, and it's where we're the most vulnerable right now.
He is Representative Steve King, Republican from Iowa's 4th Congressional District. Representative King, thanks as always for joining us. Always a pleasure. And then good luck with the Hawkeyes as they begin Big Ten play.
Well, we're going to need a little bit of that good luck. And the game of year, I know you're cheering them on as well. So
Yep.
Thanks a lot. And I appreciate the chance to be on with you this morning.
Thank you. We play Rutgers in New Jersey.
You'll probably lose.
And thanks, Dan, for your positive energy. Go Hawks. And the good congressman joined us on our Turnkey.pro answer line.